Good afternoon, welcome to EduSat Network. Friend, as you know, we are trying to understand comparative public administration, and in the last few lectures we tried to know what are the approaches of studying the comparative public administration, and the discussion from the major tradition, the major approach of studying the public administration are traditional approach, behavioral approach, post-behavioral approach, and now we are today going to discuss ecological approach of public administration given by Fredericks. You know, in the traditional approach we have more focus on the individual centric approach to study the public administration. Then we saw the behavioral approach level, that was a value-laden, scientific and interdisciplinary approach. Today we will try to understand the administration with society in the center, because the administration have impact on the society and vice versa. So we'll try to understand how this interrelation between society and administration. And for discussion on this very topic, we have in the studio Professor Prakash Chand. He teaches one of the renowned college of Delhi University, the House in College, and he is also emerging a scholar. He has written book on public administration, co-author of a book, a recent book that has come on the public administration. The name is Public Administration in the Globalizing Area. And he has also been got published article in various national and international journals. So I think his knowledge and experience in this field will help us to understand this topic and will give insight what is exactly the ecological approach of public administration, comparative public administration, and will come to know the Fredericks view on the public administration. So on behalf, I welcome him for EduSat lecture on this topic. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Mirinder. In this series of comparative public administration, we have already discussed about the meaning of comparative public administration, its growth and evolution through various stages. We have also discussed the traditional and behavioral approaches to the study of comparative public administration. Today we will focus on Fred W. Riggs' ecological approach to comparative public administration. First of all, the question comes, why did we need of an ecological approach? What happened in the post-Second World War period? A number of nations became independent of the colonial rulers. There was a need of their social, economic development. There was a need of nation building of these nations. It was also found that the Western models and approaches were not in a position to understand the ground realities of these third world nations. So a number of new approaches emerged, and one of them is the ecological approach. Ecological approach primarily means, it is basically ecology. Ecology means environment. In ecological approach, there is a close relationship between environment and administrative system. Environment does not function in a vacuum. It influences its environment and also gets influenced by the environment. The dynamics of this relationship between environment and the administrative system is primarily known as the ecological approach. The ecological approach to comparative public administration primarily originated or developed in order to understand the ground realities of the third world nations. the relationship between the administrative system and the environment. So it was a second post-World War period invention in order to understand the ground realities of the third world nations. Fred Rix has made an important contribution in the ecological approach. He has primarily tried to see the relationship between environment and the administrative system, how both interact with each others and how they behave with each other. He has written two significant books. One is The Ecology of Public Administration, written in 1961. Another is Administration in Developing Countries, The Theory of Prismatic Society, written in 1964. According to Farrell Hardy, the second book is the most significant contribution to the Comparative Public Administration by Fred Rix. Fred Rix primarily tried to understand the relationship between environment and the administrative system in the third world nations. He criticized the implementation of the Western models, approaches, theories in the third world nations without knowing the ground realities of the third world nations. He said that the social, economic, political, and cultural factors are different in the developed nations, in the Western nations, so we cannot implement all the theories and models, Western models, in the third world nations as it is, because they are originated in a different soil. They have a different background, and in order to implement them in the third world nations, we need to know, we need to understand the social, economic, political, and cultural factors affecting the environment of the third world nations. Fred Rix was also the chairman of the Comparative Administrative Group, which was set up by the American Society for Public Administration. He was the chairman of Comparative Administrative Group since its beginning, since its origin in 1960 till 1970. With the kind cooperation of the Ford Foundation, he conducted a number of research, studies, experiments in the third world nations in order to know these nations better, in order to know their ground realities. So he has a very significant contribution in the field of comparative public administration. Rix has identified three important trends in the study of comparative public administration in 1962. The first shift, according to Rix, is there is a shift from normative to empirical studies. Normative means value-laden, without fact, traditional, to empirical. Empirical means which is based on experimentations, which is based on observations, which is more scientific, which is based on factual, which is based on scientific experimentations. So there is a shift from normative to empirical studies. The second important shift in the comparative public administration is there is a shift from ideographic to nomothetic studies. Ideographic means study of one nation. study of a particular specific culture, study of a particular nation, to nomothetic studies. That means to different cultures, different nations. So this is the second significant trend in the study of comparative public administration. Third major shift is there is a shift from non-ecological to ecological studies. Non-ecological studies believe that any system has nothing to do with its environment. It operates with the help of some specific principles, and with the help of those principles, a system works, and there is no interaction between the environment and the system. On the other hand, in the ecological system, there is a close relationship between the environment and the various subsystems like political, economic, social, cultural, administrative system. So there is another trend which is the shift from non-ecological to ecological studies. Riggs says that the first trend is factual, has been realized, that is a shift from normative to empirical studies. It has been well established in the field of comparative public administration. But the second and the third trends are just evolving, they are emerging, they are in its beginning, they are at the beginning stage. He also emphasizes that if we want to make the field of comparative public administration scientific, what we need to do, we need to make the field of comparative public administration more empirical, more nomothetic, and more ecological. In Riggs' opinion, the term comparative public administration should only be used for empirical, nomothetic, and ecological studies. Riggs has applied two major approaches in the study of ecological approach. The first important approach is system approach. System approach is an integrated approach. It has various subsystems like political, social, economic, and administrative. And according to the system, all the subsystems are part of a broader system, and they interact with each other. They are dependent on each other. They are not independent. All of them are interdependent. So there is a close relationship between various subsystems of a broader system. Second most important approach which has been applied by Riggs is structural functional approach. According to structural functional approach, in a society, every structure has a particular function to play. He has identified 5 functions being performed by any society. These are economic, social, communication, symbolic, and political functions. Riggs has evolved some ideal models in the field of comparative public administration. The first model developed by Fredericks is Agraria and Industria model developed in 1956. Agraria primarily represents an agricultural society and Industria represents an industrial society. Agraria has a number of important features, like it has ascriptive values. Ascriptive values means there is more focus on customs, on traditional values. It has a particularistic approach. Particularistic means its focus is on some specific individual. It has diffuse pattern. Diffuse pattern means one person performs a number of functions. One person in this society, in the Agraria society, performs a number of functions, multiple functions. This is called fused pattern. Means functions are not segregated. There is no specialization. There is no classification of work, of working conditions. One person performs a number of functions. In the Agraria society, there is limited social and spatial mobility. Means there is very limited social upliftment. People don't have an opportunity to uplift themselves socially, culturally, and economically. In the Agraria society, there is simple and stable occupational differences. Means occupations are limited and they are very simple and stable. You will not find major differences in the occupational characters. Finally, there is existence of differential stratification system. Means in the agrarian society there is stratification on the basis of caste, on the basis of class, on the basis of religion. Means society is divided. Society is stratified on the basis of caste, class, religion. On the other hand, industrial society or the industrial model have features of achievement, norms. Means there is a norm, there is a feeling of achievement, positive feeling. There is universal features. It has universal character. Means the focus is not on an individual. There is universal applicability. Then it is also characterized by specificity. Means in the industrial society, every structure has a particular function. Means for different functions, you will find different institutions, organizations to perform. So there is specialization, work specialization. You will find doctor, teachers, nurses having different role to play in the society as opposed to the diffused pattern in the Agraria society. Then in the industrial society, there is higher social and spatial mobility. That means the society is very progressive. there are better chances of social upliftment, social betterment in the industrial society. In the industrial society, there is also a well-developed occupational patterns. Means there are a number of occupational patterns. Different people perform different role in the society. You will find teachers, doctors, nurses, engineers having different occupations, performing different roles in a society. In the industrial society, there is existence of egalitarian class system. Egalitarian means which is based on equal participation, which is based on equity. Means there is equal participation of the people in the system. They are well represented by their system. They are involved in the decision-making process. So these are the major differences between the agraria and the industrial society. The first model developed by Riggs in 1956. But there was a problem in this model. This model could not understand some of the societies which are in a phase of transition, which are in a phase of development. Those societies which are moving from agraria to industrial. So in order to study these transitional societies, Riggs evolved another model in 1957, which is called as an equilibrium model, called as transitia. That means it represents those societies which are in a process of development, moving from agrarian to the industrial society. The most important model developed by Riggs is fused prismatic diffracted model developed in 1957 in order to understand the ground realities of the third world nations, in order to understand the linkages, in order to understand the relationship between environment and the administrative system in the third world nations. So this is the fused prismatic and diffracted model. The fused model represents an underdeveloped society. This kind of society was in prevalence, was in existence in the imperial China and Thailand at that time. So he made the example of imperial China and Thailand. The fused society is characterized by heavy dependence on agriculture. In a fused society, most of the people are engaged in the agricultural activities. A single structure performs all functions in a fused society. Like in the villages, the village headman performs a number of activities like solving the children problems, solving the marriage problems, solving the land problems, solving the problems of flood, forests, different personal disputes. Means he has no authority, but he is involved in solving a number of problems. The economic system of the fused society is based on barter system. That means it is based on the exchange system. You give me rice, I will give you onion. You give me wheat, I will give you another kind of food or anything else. Means there is no prevalence of money. There is no practice of capital. So this is the barter system which is in prevalence in the fused society. In the fused society, the royal family plays an important role. They play an important role in the decision-making process of the nation. And people have no role to play in the politics. They are out of the decision-making process. So, the fused society is a very traditional society which is based on heavy dependence on agriculture, where single structure performs a number of functions, where there is barter system of economy, where people are not involved in the decision-making process, where royal family plays an important role. So, it basically primarily represents an underdeveloped nation as exampled by Riggs. The second kind of society is Diffracted Society. Diffracted means different, means where every structure performs a different function. Every structure has a different role to play. This society has high degree of specialization. Means for all the activities you will find different people to perform. In a diffracted society, the economic system is based on market mechanism. There is a market mechanism. State and the government has a limited role to play. There is open competition in the market. Prices are fixed on the basis of that open competition. In this society, we have a very responsive government which keeps in mind the welfare of the common people. And thus, people play an important role in the government and politics. They are involved in the decision-making power. In this society, pressure groups also play an important role. They criticize the government, they educate the common people, they also pressurize the government to work for the people. So there is greater role of the civil society or the pressure group in the diffracted society. In a diffracted society, government officials are very efficient. They have people's welfare in mind and they have very limited coercive role, coercive power. In this society, communication and technology is highly developed. People are well informed about the governmental programs, about the governmental decisions. So, diffracted society primarily represents the Western developed nations, especially US, and there is greater specialization of work. Economic system is based on the market mechanism. Their government is responsive, and people play an important role in the government and politics. And pressure groups have an important role to play in such a society. And the bureaucracy is very positive. It is responsive, it is democratic, it is transparent, it is accountable to the people, and it has limited coercive role. It is very positive and cooperative. And in this society, communication and technology is highly developed. The main objective of Fredericks was to study the interaction between environment and the administrative system of the third world nations. In order to see this linkage, in order to study this interaction between environment and the administrative system, his focus was on the Prismatic Society. Prismatic Society represents a developing nation, a nation which is moving from an underdeveloped to a developed world, like India. He was primarily interested in this Prismatic Society. Prismatic Society, the term prismatic is derived from the science prism, where white light is thrown, where white light goes through the prism, the glass prism, and comes out into 7 different colors, in 7 different rays. So the prism through which light goes is the Prismatic Society, which is under the process, which is in between the fused and diffracted society. Prismatic Society has features of both fused as well as diffracted society, underdeveloped as well as developed nations. Riggs identified 3 important characteristics and features of a prismatic society. First is heterogeneity. Heterogeneity means different. In a prismatic society, you will find simultaneous presence of different kinds of views and patterns. You will find rural and urban areas. You will find Gurukul education as well as Western education system. You will find medical care of homeopathy as well as allopathic treatment. You will find traditional as well as modern administrative setup. For example, you can see in India, we have rural as well as urban areas. We have Gurukuls in the rural areas, and we have highly Western education system. In our cities, we have homeopathic as well as allopathic medicinal system. And our administrative setup is very modern in the cities, in the urban areas, but very traditional, conservative, feudal in the rural areas and in the backward areas. So, the first most important feature, characteristics of a prismatic society is there is heterogeneity. At the same time, you will find different things. Rural, urban, Gurukul Western education, homeopathic, allopathic medicine, traditional modern administrative system. The second important feature of a prismatic society is formalism. Formalism means law says one thing, but the practice would be different. The law, the constitution says equality, but in practice you will find inequality. Law will say justice, fraternity, equity, but you will find in practice the opposite things. In this system, the actual behavior of officials would be at variance with what laws lays down. The public officials or the bureaucracy is supposed to work for the welfare of the common people. They are supposed to cater services to the people, but they work for their individual benefit. They are involved in corruption. They are involved in their personal aggrandizement. They are not concerned in practice with the welfare of the common people. So, in this society, there is formalism. There are rules, regulations, there are constitutional provisions. But in practice, you will find the non-implementation of those values. Like in India, we have a number of rules and regulations regarding dowry, regarding women justice, equal rights to men and women. But in practice, what do we see? There is a lot difference between theory and practice. In elections, you will find the election commission has a number of directions for the political parties to follow, to obey. But in practice, most of the directions are not followed. So, there is a formalism. Official would say, yes, there is a provision, but justice will not be provided. So, there is a formality in the government officials, in the bureaucracy, in this prismatic society. The third important feature of a prismatic society is there is overlapping. In this society, you will find modern as well as traditional structures carrying different functions. You will find modern as well as traditional structures to carry out functions. In rural areas, you will find the village head performs a number of duties, though he has no legal sanctity, he has no legal power to resolve the family dispute, to resolve the property dispute, to resolve the forest disputes. But he is supposed to do so in the rural areas. Though we have different institutions, different officials to do such activities in the cities, in the urban areas. For forest affairs, you will go to forest officials. For private or personal disputes, we will go to judiciary. For children dispute, you will find the juvenile judiciary. So different institutions have different functions in the modern or cities. But in prismatic society, there is the overlapping. In the urban areas, you have different persons to perform those responsibilities, but in the rural areas, single or one person performs those activities. In a prismatic society, we have parliament, we have government officials, but they are very much influenced by caste, by religion, by class. So there is a greater influence of caste, class, religion on the government officials, on the parliament. Government sometimes acts on the basis of the pressure of a particular group, like reservation. Sometimes government frames a particular law due to the pressure of a particular group, a particular religion, a particular caste. And in fact, in elections, you can see caste, class, religion plays an important role. Though they are not supposed to play an important role constitutionally, but in practice you will find caste, class and religion plays an important role in the electoral system of the Indian politics. So, in a prismatic society, you see there is heterogeneity, simultaneous presence of different kinds of views and systems. There is formalism, rules are there, but they are not practiced, they are not implemented. And there are modern as well as traditional structures to carry out functions. Rick's another focus is on prismatic Sala model. Sala is primarily the administrative subsystem of the prismatic society. In a fused society, the same nomenclature has been given to chamber. In a diffracted society, the same nomenclature is given to bureau, and in a prismatic society, there is Sala, which is the administrative subsystem of a prismatic society. According to Ricks, a prismatic society has different social, political, administrative and economic subsystems. And the administrative subsystem of the Prismatic Society is called as the Sala system, the Sala model. A Sala is characterized by nepotism and favoritism, primarily in the appointment process, primarily in the appointment of officials. The bureaucrats give preference to their caste, to their community, to their religion. So there is a kind of favoritism in the appointment of officials in the administrative subsystem of the Prismatic Society, which is called a Sala model. Second feature of the Sala model is there is polycommunalism. Polycommunalism means people of a particular community gets special weightage by the government officials. In this Sala system, there is a highly centralized authority. There is centralization of power. There is a big gap between the common people and the bureaucrats. For example, in India, the district collector is called as the Maibab, means which is above the common people. Though constitutionally he is supposed to serve the people, they are the government officials, they are called as the government servant. But in practice you will find that there is a lack of communication between the bureaucracy and the common people. So the bureaucracy and authority in the Prismatic Sala model is highly centralized. People are rarely involved in the administrative decisions, in the administrative decision-making process. In promotions, the government officials seek favor from their superiors, though they should get promotions on the basis of merit, on the basis of their performance of their job. But in practice, they get promotion on the basis of favor by their superiors. And in this Sala system, the government officials are unresponsive to the people. They are not concerned with the welfare of the common people. They are corrupt, they are individualistic, they are not transparent, they are not cooperative. They work in a very closed system. They are not accountable to the common people. Even they keep themselves far above from the common people. They think that we are above the common people. They have become a distinct class in the Indian society. So they were originated in order to serve the common people. Riggs calls a prismatic society as an unbalanced polity. An unbalanced polity. In this Sala system or the Sala model of the prismatic society, bureaucrats get more power, political as well as administrative, due to the weak political system, because the politicians are not well educated, because they don't have technical expertise, they are very temporary for for a very temporary period for their work, and they don't have enough time to look after their job. So in this society, bureaucrats acquire more power. It captures power from the politicians. So this is an unbalanced polity. So the prismatic Sala model is featured by nepotism, favoritism, there is polycommunalism, there is highly centralized authority, promotions are made on the basis of favor, the officials are not responsive to the common people, and such a society where bureaucrats have more power, this kind of society is called by Riggs as an unbalanced polity. Riggs has another model which is called as the Bazaar Canteen model. Bazaar Canteen model is the economic subsystem of a prismatic society. In a Bazaar Canteen model, there is price indeterminacy. That means price of service vary from place to place, from time to time, from person to person. There is a system which is called as bargaining system. For example, in Delhi, you go to the Palika Bazaar, you will be asked to pay 1000 rupee, but after bargaining you will get the same thing at 100 rupee. So in Indian system, in this prismatic society, there is a mechanism of bargaining. Price indeterminacy prevails. Prices are not fixed. As far as the wage relations are concerned, in a Bazaar Canteen model, Bazaar Canteen means hodgepodge kind of marketization, hodgepodge kind of economic system. No fixed prices, wages are not fixed, there is a wide gap between for the same work. For example, in India, you will find men and women have different wages for the same work. In this economic system, a small section of people enjoy all benefits with control over economic institutions. They exploit the common people. So this system is based on exploitation, corruption, inflation, and discrimination. Riggs' ideal model has been criticized by a number of scholars. The most important criticism of Riggs' ideal model is it lacks change orientation. Han Bin Lee is a very significant, renowned administrative thinker. He says that Riggs' prismatic model is, he calls it as an equilibrium model, means whose primary purpose is to equalize, to make an equilibrium. It is not concerned with the change. Though in the third world nations we need change oriented bureaucracy, but Riggs' model has a lack of change orientation. Second important criticism is there is absence of empirical evidence. Third is there is highly technical description, means a number of words have been coined by Riggs, but invention of scientific words does not mean that you have become scientific. Then prismatic model has a negative character. Negative character means Rick says it has corruption, nepotism, red tapeism. It also suffers from ethnocentrism. That means there is superiority of the diffracted model. Rick says that our focus should be to achieve the diffracted model, the developed nations, as prevalent in US. Despite these criticisms, Riggs has a lot of contribution in the field of comparative public administration. His model helps us to understand interaction between administrative system and its environment. It raised the basic questions about the relevance of Western theories to the developed nations. It also encouraged several empirical studies on administrative system of the developed nations. Thus, it can be concluded that Rick's primary focus was on knowing the interaction between environment and the administrative system in the third world nations. If we apply the Rick's ecological model to India, we find the same things. We find there is corruption, nepotism, there is duality, there is formalism. Market is based on bargaining. So, by knowing the limitations of our system, we can improve, we can evolve the alternatives. That would be the best contribution of Riggs to the comparative study of public administration. Thank you.
So, his contribution, as you suggested, that the shift from, so what you say, this ecological approach and behavioral approach, when we want to adopt a certain situation, so what focus should be?
What difference would be?
Not difference, to solve the problem, situation based problem of administration, because the one is the routine administration, the other is the situation what demands. So in that case, what we need to do, the ecological approach or behavioral approach, what approach one need to?
Actually, it is up to the context. In which context we want to apply a specific principle or model.
Okay.
It is up to the circumstances. That is why Riggs says the same thing, that what we need to know the cultural, social, economic, political aspects of a particular nation. Only after knowing those factors, we can imbibe the foreign or we can imbibe the models of the other nations. So first of all, we need to know the ground realities of a particular system.
Okay. So, well friends, with these words we conclude the lecture. I thank all of you for watching the lecture, and on our behalf I thank Professor Prakash Chand for giving such an insightful lecture on this ecological approach to comparative public administration. Thank you so much.